Hello, Hockey World. I am not in Florida. I am, unless, or I could say I am in Florida. I just moved everything. I moved all of my background stuff with me in my suitcase. It took forever to pack all this stuff, reset it up in the hotel room like this, and put it perfectly. But no, actually, I'm not. I left with all
That,
intentions of going to Florida.
that was a hell of a big carry-on luggage that you had.
It was, and I had all the intentions of going there today. And on the way down to Baltimore, it was a big accident, which I'm lucky I did not get injured in. A couple people did, so hopefully they're okay. And that made me miss my plane, which made me go back to Philadelphia, which made me start to try to get more flights, which made me decide that I'm not going to go to Florida at all. So I'm here. Mike's in Florida, though. Kevin's in Florida. So and we're going to do for you a good old fashioned hockey buzzcast right here. Because we got lots of stuff happening. Here we go. Let's get the date is the 25th. I know that because I just paid my electric bill. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. How you doing? It's, well, I'll say it's Thursday. It's June 25th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello from Fort Lauderdale.
I'm Kevin Allen from Fort Lauderdale. Not far down the hallway.
Yep, there you go. And I'm Eklund, and Mike, you're in my room. Get the hell out of there. But now you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com, and we are coming to you live today. We're just one day away. We're going to do a kind of a quick show today, just to catch up on what's happened so far today. Because Kevin's got stories to write, I've got people to call, and Mike's got women to meet. So, or maybe not, but something like that. Anyway, let's start here. There's been a lot happening today, and the big news right now that's flying around the internet, and although I haven't been able to get anybody to actually confirm this, I think it came out of the Score earlier today, is that the Pittsburgh Penguins are interested in Phil Kessel. And this has been the big story of the day. It's been flying around. Everybody's talking about that and Cam Talbot's so 11 o'clock, though. This is the big story now. But yeah, so the story is that there's a lot of buzz behind this. Kevin, what are your thoughts? You think this is possible?
Well, here's what I would say about it. It makes sense from what the Penguins are trying to accomplish.
Right.
They'd like to get a scoring winger, a proven scorer. I mean, they don't have enough of both Crosby and Malkin, and now I think they're really too short. With it been one short for a long time. The problem I have with it is that they're a gallery cap 4 team right now. Salary cap. So I don't know how they make this work. I mean, they'd have to take some contracts back. And what do they have to offer? Like, what's the pieces that make this attractive? They don't have a first-round pick. They've given that up for David Perron. I look at their prospect list, and there's not a lot of guys there that would get the Maple Leafs excited. So I don't know what it is. Where do they go from here? So,
yeah, I mean, the people are saying Perron would probably. I mean, people are speculating, like crazy. So, and Perron would be part of this, right? That we can imagine is possible, I guess. And he's got some money on his. He carries with him a little bit of a price tag.
but why would Toronto want him back? I mean, I could see them be willing to take him back. And he didn't play well late in the season if they got something big in return. But
yeah,
what is it that they're going to get that would make them say, okay, you can have my Phil Kessel, and we'll take David Perron back, and okay, none. Where do we go?
Well, what about a first-round draft pick next year? I mean, that's the question that I'm curious about, because the Penguins could suck. I mean, they could really. It's possible that I don't mean that. It's possible that the Penguins' first-round draft pick next year is a lottery pick.
Well, there are two prospects that I can think of that in a potential Kessel deal the Leafs would be interested in. The other would be their first-round pick from last year, Kasperi Kapanen. I don't know if they want to trade Kapanen because Kapanen appears to.
Yeah, Kapanen is. You're breaking up a little bit, Mike. There, they really like Kapanen. Of course, they like Cap. Of course, they're going to have to give up something they like here, Kevin. Right? I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah, I didn't think they would give up Kapanen, though. And I say that because they have to start building for the future as well. And Kapanen is sort of the start of the new beginning for the Penguins moving forward. So,
and it does sound like at least Mark Spector has come out and said, and Mark's somebody I do trust on these kind of things, that he did come out and say that there would have to be a lot of salary retained here, and this is something that Mike's talked about them not wanting to do. He thinks that there would have to be, the Leafs would have to retain some salary. That's a lot, but how much? I mean, how much salary can they really retain, Kevin?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a fun thing to discuss because the thought of Phil Kessel playing with Crosby or Malkin,
right,
is exciting, and it makes a lot of sense from the Penguins' perspective. I guess maybe what you said is what we really have to embrace is you don't get Phil Kessel unless you give up something big like Kapanen.
Yeah. And Kapanen, or a couple other people I talked to, who hadn't heard anything about it, said that they believed Olli Maatta would have to be involved in this trade. That would be another player that would have to be involved. I don't know, but
yeah, he's a low price right now, and he's a very good defenseman. So I would think that they would hesitate to trade him but I think Pouliot would be the defenseman they would rather trade. But in this deal, to balance things out, the Leafs would probably have to take back either Pascal Dupuis, who's 2 more years, a little less than $4 million, or Chris Kunitz, who a lot of people think is on a dramatic decline, and he's got 2 more years left. But that's half the story of Kessel for the next 2 years. But then you have 5 more years to go on Kessel.
Yeah, but you get past 2 years, and now you have more money there, so then maybe the cap goes up. So I don't think you're worried too much about it. 3 years, you just have to get past at least this year and next year, I would say. But yeah, this does in a way fix the Phil Kessel problem and maybe the Sidney Crosby problem at the same time. We don't know that these guys can play together, but they've never played together. They're you're talking about an American and a Canadian. But you would think that they would be able to play together. And Kessel has never played with any playmaker the likes of Crosby. Kev, that would be exciting.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He's been a consistent goal scorer. I've talked about this now. He basically everybody said last season that he lost interest. He wasn't engaged in what was going on. The Leafs had a terrible season. It was ridiculously bad, and he scored 25 goals. So everything was ridiculously bad, and he wasn't interested, and he was disengaged, and he scored 25 goals. I think that kind of says it all.
That does. I agree with you completely.
With Crosby, he could score 40 to 50 goals. The thing is, and this can be worked out potentially, but Phil Kessel is a player who likes to carry the puck.
Yeah.
He likes to be the one, and sometimes he has pretty good playmaking skills because he did play center younger in his earlier, not with the Bruins, but before he was drafted, and I think he played center in college for a year. But he has sometimes the mentality of a center in terms of being a playmaker, but he's got such a good shot that he also can score goals. With a guy like Crosby and a guy like Malkin, they like carrying the puck, so it would be him going to open zones looking for the pass that comes from Crosby and Malkin. That would potentially be a little bit of an adjustment period, but when you have a playmaking center of the ability of Crosby and a guy like Malkin as well, Kessel with his abilities could score 40 to 50.
Yeah, and that would be, that would be huge for the Penguins who have desperately needed a winger for Crosby forever, and this is, this goes back to, Hossa. I remember one of the first times I heard about the whole Crosby needing a winger thing was at the first Winter Classic, that we were talking about way back then, and I remember talking to somebody in between, and that was when Hossa would eventually get traded to Pittsburgh that year, and someone in the middle of that game, when I talked to him in between periods, said that they thought that would happen, that Crosby would get them to trade Hossa to them, and that this and that was okay, but it wasn't an awesome fit even, and Kunitz has been very good with him, no question about it, but the question is how much of Kunitz is Crosby, because some players can just play with skilled players, and that's what Kunitz has shown, but he's not necessarily the skill level of Phil Kessel. I don't know. There's going to be other news that's going on too. Is there's also a rumor that the Penguins
Did we lose Zach?
I don't see him. Can you hear
We
me?
must have lost Zach. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. And I don't know what he was talking about regarding the Penguins, but I'm sure he'll be back in a second. But while we're waiting, well, here he comes. Not sure what was going on there.
I'm back. My Wi-Fi has been fantastic until you guys jump back on. No issues there. Anyway, well, the other rumor was I'll get this out as fast as I can so you guys can talk about it while I log out and in again. Okay, so here I am. I thought that was me getting logged out. Sorry, I almost said something I shouldn't have on the air. I've heard that the Leafs are offering their 24th. Is it the 24th pick?
Yeah.
What is the 24th pick?
Yes.
Yeah, the 24th pick. Sorry, I'm just checking my.
National. Yeah.
Right, the 24th and Jake Gardner, and there's a trade out there for that. I don't know what this is for exactly. I don't know what this, but I've also heard that that's out there right now. So we're definitely keeping. You can speculate.
Can I speculate on?
Absolutely, wildly.
What I think it might be.
Feel free to wildly speculate, Mike. Not just.
I think it's Ryan O'Reilly.
Think that's Ryan O'Reilly?
I think it's Ryan O'Reilly. Yeah, and I don't know if the Leafs would give up Gardner and the 24th pick for Ryan O'Reilly, but I think they would give up Gardner, and I know that from previous reports that the Avalanche are interested in Gardner. They're looking for a left-hand shooting defenseman, and he's signed for another 4 years, a little over $4 million. So that would add up, and the news came out this morning that they are well apart. O'Reilly and the Avs on a new contract. Apparently, he's looking for a max deal, which means 8 years, for $60 million, according to the report from I think it was Nick Kyprios' Sportsnet. And if that's the case, that's $7.5 million. They're not going to pay Ryan O'Reilly that kind of money when they have to pay McKinnon and they're paying Duchesne $6 million. They're not going to pay Ryan O'Reilly that much.
Yeah, I mean that's a good one. We talked a little bit about this yesterday.
I'd make that trade if I was Toronto.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I would too. Another thing that came out in the last little bit, I was chasing down the fact that Columbus, I think, might be the closest to getting the third pick overall from Arizona, as we discussed a little bit yesterday. They've gone very, very quiet on the whole thing, which is a little bit surprising. At least my sources there. But while searching that out, I also found out that San Jose indeed made a pitch for the third overall pick. I don't know who that included, but there was definitely another. I mean, San Jose's got some players, Kevin. I mean, they could actually do something if they wanted to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that because they're also got a reasonable draft pick. What are they, 9th? No.
Yeah.
8th. Is it 8th?
No, they're 9th. Columbus is 8th.
Yeah, that's right.
San Jose's 9th, and Colorado's 10th.
Yeah, and 9th is not so far to fall, but I think you got to pay more.
Right. But they have guys like Pavelski. I mean, they have got players,
they can't give up Pavelski though.
No.
So, but they could help Arizona a lot.
Yeah.
And really, you can almost make the case that the Sharks would be better off actually moving some players out because they need a cleansing breath here.
Exactly.
So for them to move out some players and just sort of have a fresh. A reboot probably would help them as well. So
I would think, and I'm only basing this on the potential scenario. I would think that Joe Thornton or a Patrick Marleau would waive to go to Arizona, not because Arizona has a chance to win, but because let's just say the San Jose situation right now is toxic. I think that they're one way or the other. Unless they're just adamant that they're not going to waive the no trade or waive the no move and stay there no matter what. But Arizona could be a pretty good landing spot for one of them. And as we mentioned a couple webcasts ago, Arizona's got they're $16 million under the cap floor. So taking a veteran guy on for a couple years who's making around $6 million isn't the craziest idea in the world, and it also gives young guys like Max Domi and Dvorak and all the kids that they have, a veteran to sort of model themselves.
Right. No, I agree. Now we heard a lot. When Maloney came out and said, there's some hell of good players out there available. If you want to make this trade, so that's. I know Pavelski is not going to get traded, but you have to start wondering like a Logan, Couture. I mean, there are players out there. I mean, if you're talking about the 3rd pick overall and you're San Jose, I mean,
I
it's
don't know that you have to give up that much, though. I mean, you're
yeah.
going to give them 9. So
Well, say you're not going to give them 9. I mean, say you're not going to give them 9. I mean, that's the
but
thing.
they're going to have to give 9 back because Arizona is in that tricky situation where they've got to try to compete now, and they also have to plan for the future. So they can't afford not to have a 1st-round pick. So
Yeah.
I think they got to get 9 back. So they take that pick back, and to be honest with you, I find it hard to believe Joe Thornton would go play in Arizona. Like, he likes playing in San Jose.
Yeah, he would have left by now if he
because he had a lot of opportunities, and he has pretty much said he likes it there. So and I've never felt Joe Thornton was the problem there. A lot of people want to blame him for everything that has happened on the West Coast, including San Andreas' fault. But
that's for sure.
I never thought he was the problem. I mean, all he does every year is get a bunch of points.
He's been very disappointing in the playoffs. I mean, there's no question about that.
I get it, but it's hard to score in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think we've all taken note of that in the last couple of years because there's some people with some incredibly great regular season numbers that have trouble scoring in the postseason. So
Shanahan has apparently come out and said that they're getting a lot of interest on Kessel when he asked about this, and yet there's no deadline. He's willing to take his time, but saying there is a lot of interest on Kessel. That's what they were saying.
That's what GMs told me yesterday, that they felt that Shanahan didn't feel any pressure to do anything immediately, because as I spoke yesterday or 2 days ago, artificial deadlines never help you. If you just say I'm going to get this guy traded by this point,
you're not getting anywhere with that. I agree completely.
It never helps you. So I think he's wise to just sort of let this play a little bit. And in fact, you can almost make a case that the closer you get to the start of the season, the more value Kessel may have as everyone starts to panic. Well, maybe we won't score any goals.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, everybody's roster looks pretty good on July 1st.
People, for sure.
But the problem with that, Kevin, is the fact that, and granted,
right back, guys. Sorry, I've got.
Okay, granted, there are not a ton of free agents that will eat up a lot of cap space. It's not a great free agent crop. But other teams, if they don't make a move on Kessel, they probably will make a move somewhere else. And then that sort of eliminates teams from being in the market for him. I mean, and I don't know if teams in August and September are going to be more likely to take on an $8 million cap hit, than they would be now, when essentially not the slate is clean, but I mean, I think there's more flexibility right now. But once contracts start getting signed, players who are restricted free agents get extended, money is being eaten up, then less and less flexibility is going to be there. And then I think the likelihood of Kessel being moved down. And the thing is, they could get stuck if they don't move. And I'm taking sort of an in-between position here. They don't have to move Kessel today. They don't have to move him tomorrow. But I think they have to move him in the first, say, week of July, because once you get past rush of free agency and whatever trades happen, then I think that flexibility of other teams is gone. Yeah,
but here's the deal, though. I mean, I completely accept the logic of your argument. It does make a lot of sense. But, and especially when you look at the list of Kessel's so-called I'll accept trades to here. But, I believe he's going to end up with one of those teams where, it won't be an issue, his salary. By that I meant, I still think the best place for him to go is Arizona or Florida or Nashville or a team like that. Now, those teams are not on his list, but I got to believe that if someone sat Phil down and said, hey, you could go to Nashville where there's only one newspaper in town that covers the team with one reporter, and you're going to be on a good team with a chance to win. You're going to be a star player. You're going to score a lot of goals. That he'd be interested, and and why wouldn't he want to go to Florida? They're on the team on the rise as well, where again you have the same situation. You don't have to live in a fishbowl. You can have a private life. So, and those teams, will still have room. Now, there's budgetary concerns, not just cap concerns. So, I mean, your point still works in that regard as well. But I guess if I look at it logically, I see your point that because basically teams are going to go to Plan B if they don't get Phil Kessel, right now. So.
One of those teams might be the Montreal Canadiens, who I heard in the last hour have interest in Patrick Sharp. That's one of the possible destinations for Patrick Sharp. Montreal, they do need another top 6 player. When you look at their team, they really don't score goals. I mean, even their best players don't score goals. Even Plekanec, who's a really good player, is not exactly doesn't exactly tear it up. So.
Yeah, but honestly, I think if they're going to expend assets in a trade for a veteran player, they need a center. They don't need another winger. Galchenyuk has not played effectively in the little time that he's played at center. They've played him mostly on the wing. Plekanec is pretty decent. Desharnais is not a great to my mind is not a great number 2. You need a big-bodied center if you can find one. And I think that's what they need to add. Remember you mentioned Mikko Koivu a while back as a possible trade option. Eric Stahl might be on the market if they can't reach a long-term agreement if his agent and Carolina can't agree on an extension. That's the type of player that I think Montreal needs to bring in. I think if they bring in Patrick Sharp, he's a veteran. He's won 3 Stanley Cups. He's a good player. I just don't think it's what they really need. And I think Ak is frozen.
No, I agree with that assessment. The problem is, and Marc Bergevin said it at the end of the season, where he knows what the team needs, but they're just those guys aren't available. That's the problem.
Yeah, and Koivu is a significant investment. I believe he has 3 years left, and he's making close to $7 million. And he didn't have a great year last year, but And I don't know, what I don't know is Bergevin willing to trade young pieces to get that key forward? I mean, he's got a lot of prospects. Would he include Galchenyuk in a deal? Would he trade a Nathan Beaulieu or a Jared Tenorti? They seem to want to keep those prospects in-house. I don't know how willing they are to trade those guys.
Yeah. I mean, we're circling what we always talk about, though, and it's what X said at the start of this conversation. If you want to get a player of Phil Kessel's, man, you got to give up somebody. There has to be somebody that's attractive to. The more we talked about the Pittsburgh Penguin situation, the more I started to think, well, I can't see him giving up Ali Mata because, they're going to lose Martin and they're losing Ehrhoff. So they still have to have a defense, and so they would have Letang and Mata would anchor the defense. But Kapanen hasn't been there yet, so he's just speculation at this point.
Right.
So it's easier to trade those guys that you haven't seen yet. Maybe that's the guy.
I mean, the one thing I would connect Mata, and I'm not saying that this is part of the deal, but I'm just saying if you think that Mata is part of a deal for Kessel. Mata played under Mark Hunter with the London Knights. Yeah,
but would the Penguins really be ahead if they hurt their So then why make the deal?
Right. That's why I don't think of that. Pouliot has not played significant time with them. Neither has Kapanen. So they're undetermined commodities. They are future commodities.
To be honest with you, I would trade Pouliot if I was the Penguins. Quicker than I would trade Kapanen. They had to be one or the other. I can't see that they're going to give up both. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they're, and again, will they eat any of the salary? If they don't eat any of the salary, the Penguins couldn't do it anyway.
Yeah.
So they have to take Kunis back, or something.
Yeah, I mean, whatever deal that Pittsburgh makes involving, if there is something involving Kessel, they're going to have to probably move 1 or 2 salaries off of their roster. Maybe both. Maybe that's part of it. How can they afford to take Phil Kessel back? Well, maybe the Leafs are willing to eat money. Maybe the Leafs take both Dupuis and Kunitz off of their hands because then you're taking off almost $8 million in salary, and then you can plug in a guy like Kessel with Hornquist, with Crosby, and with Malkin. I don't think that's out of the question because I don't think there are any limitations on what Brendan Shanahan will do to get value back for Phil Kessel. They will take a bad contract. They'll take 2 bad contracts to get what they want for Phil Kessel.
But if they're going to do all that, don't they then have to get more than Pulio? So
probably. Maybe they get both prospects. Maybe they get some youngster who played for them last year. Maybe that's the price they pay to get Mata. If that's the guy that they really want, they'll take almost $8 million in salary back. I mean, we're just throwing things against the wall.
No, that's right. I mean, that one though, that's troublesome because you're trying to sell the team. So are you going to really try to sell a team when you've got 3 good young players, and now you're saying you're giving up 2 of them to, get Phil Kessel. The thing about it is I think Phil Kessel's impact is greater than his reputation. So that would be my argument. Like I don't think people see him to be as valuable as I think he is.
Yeah. And I think an argument in favor of a potential deal between Pittsburgh and Toronto is Jim Rutherford, because Jim Rutherford has never been shy as a general manager to make an impact deal.
No, but also, he's only going to be there a short period of time, and ownership knows that. So are they going to sign off on a deal where? I mean, Jim Rutherford is trying to win now, and that's you really want that. You want a guy to be going for it now. On the other hand, you can't. They'll have nothing left. They'll just have Mata for the for the future. They got no first-round pick this year. I think that's a hard decision to make.
It's definitely a risky proposition.
Yeah.
But there was another. While Eck is straightening out his computer issues, there was some mention this afternoon. It's sort of mixed messaging from Vancouver regarding. It was a report from TSN that said that Kevin Bieksa would be asked by the club to, waive his no trade or give their list of teams that he'd be willing to be traded to. I mean, Kevin, I don't think Bieksa is over the hill. I think he's still got something to contribute. He doesn't have a lot of term left on a deal. This is a player that a team who is looking for a short-term fix on defense might be interested in.
Couldn't agree more. There's so many teams that are looking for a veteran defenseman, and I actually understand it from Vancouver's perspective as well. I think they just want to change their look. I mean, sometimes deals are made simply for the coach just wants to have a change of the dynamic, and you take out Bieksa out of that lineup, and it's a little bit different look. Benning's on record as saying he'd like to get a second or third round pick to have at his disposal in this very deep draft. So I can see that actually happening, and I think there would be a lot of teams that would be interested. Plus, I don't think, when you look at how much money you're going to have to pay to get a free agent defenseman, Bieksa could end up looking like a bargain.
Right. He's making $4.6 million, and he's a UFA after next season. So,
yeah.
For a team like Pittsburgh, for a team like Chicago, although Chicago's got their limitations in terms of salary, but for those teams that are in contention that need that veteran guy to be a 3-4 or a 5. Bieksa makes a lot of sense. Now, the other thing that was talked about involving Vancouver was the goaltending situation. They have Markstrom, they have Lack. Apparently, both of them are on the market. Depends on what they get back or how much they get back for one of them. I'm not sure where there's who is less or who is more in favor there. But there is a domino effect right now with all these goaltenders, because Cam Talbot, I don't know how much the Rangers are going to get for him. None of the goalies have moved, and I have a feeling that once one does, then you're going to have 2 or 3 moved as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and this is a really an unusual goaltending market this season because there are so many teams looking for goalies. Usually it's a very limited selection process. That's why I say, man, if I'm a goalie, I always, if a team is offering me a contract extension, I take it because you never know what you're going to be looking at when you get to free agency and you're a goalie. I mean, we've seen goalies, when the music stopped, have no chair because let's face it, there's only 60 positions in the NHL, so you got to be careful. But in this case, there are several teams. Dallas wants a goalie, kind of a 1B goalie to play with Lettman. San Jose is looking for a changing of the guard there. Calgary is looking for a goalie. Buffalo's looking for a goalie. Edmonton's looking for a goalie. So there's going to be teams out there. So, and I think, Eddie Lack, we know, has been connected with Buffalo. The one thing about Lack is he has some NHL experience, and he's played well in some of those games. And if you scouted him on the right games, you can convince yourself that he's an inexpensive option to kind of plug in. So I think he is an attractive option. I think that's why the Canucks will choose to trade him. I just think you can get more from him. The market is just good. It's a goalie friendly market.
Back, guys. Sorry, I'm just going off a different computer. I don't know what's going on in my house today. So before we go, I did want to mention that I heard Enroth's name mentioned as well, along with the Rangers, if they were to move Talbot. But that was enough. That was a good possibility. It would be a Swedish goalie, to bring in behind Lundqvist, which is kind of interesting. And so maybe we could do some. Maybe there's a possibility there. But there are so many goalies, as you said, Kevin. It's really going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I heard something interesting about Martin Jones, that the fact that the LA Kings are talking contract with him. He's an RFA, and they're not totally unopposed to keeping him around, but if they keep him around, if they sign him to a contract that's consistent with a backup goaltender, say less than $2 million, and then flip him somewhere else, then he's not being paid as a number one goaltender. He basically doesn't want to sign with the Kings right now until they determine what they're going to do with him. If they trade him someplace else,
the Kings need him. I really believe that the Kings need him, and I've talked to people out there. I mean, Quick is an awesome goalie, and it's phenomenal, but he also has injury issues. And the year the Kings just won the Stanley Cup, remember, Jones was a big player on that team throughout the season. There's no saying, you can't look at Quick like a 65 to 70 game goalie. I mean, I don't think you really should, at least.
No, and he didn't play well last season.
Right.
I thought he was below average to average.
Yeah. So Martin Jones has played well for them, and I think they want to keep him. I think they're, money-wise, this is part of the reason. I think this is part of the issue that they're having with not bringing back Justin Williams. I think at the end of the day, Jones will sign there. I think he will stay there because they just know him. They know him and they trust him.
Yeah, but I do get his point though, is that if he's hesitant to sign with them based on the fact that he could make over $2 million, make maybe close to $3 million if he gets traded to a team like Edmonton, who's going to make him their number one. But if he's staying in LA, then he's probably more amenable to taking a backup salary.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, we got to get going, guys, but we'll be back again tomorrow. And also, I might jump back on at some point today, too, as things break down tonight and going into tomorrow. We'll definitely be back on tomorrow, probably around, we're not sure, but sometime in the early afternoon. And then leading into tomorrow night, where things are going to get crazy. Tomorrow morning could be interesting, from what I've heard a couple people say. You agree with that one, Kev?
Yeah, I think the morning of the Friday draft day is usually pretty busy. There's usually something by noon or 1 o'clock. Like I expect there'll be a trade by then. Something's going to give by that point. I mean, it sure sounds like the Arizona thing could be close. I'm not sure how I feel about all that either, too.
Yeah.
That seems like an NFL trade,
Yeah.
But from what we're, second and third, and that's how they make trades. But those make more sense, I think, because in the NFL, second and third rounders are going to step into your starting lineup.
Right. They can play right away.
Yeah. So I think if you're going to go even from third to eight, you got to get somebody significant. So maybe it's Kirby Reichel. He's going to play in the league, but he's not going to be a star. He's just going to be it looks to me like a third liner. No,
And that's not enough. I mean, you can't get you got to get a star in that spot, I think.
Well, you got to get a good prospect or something if you're going to move down.
Yeah.
So
something pretty significant.
Yeah.
One other thing I did have today I wanted to talk about, and then we'll just get into a little bit, but I had a really interesting discussion today with a couple of people involved in this process of filling out applications for the NHL expansion stuff. And this is, I'm not going to talk about it too much today, but all I can say is the one thing that really kept coming up today when I talked to people about this was, why now? There is a feeling among people who are in that world that the NHL is always talking to people, that they're always taking applications, they're always getting their feelers out there. They're never officially taking applications, but they're always sort of listening, because these things don't just materialize out of nowhere. There's a reason this is only a month-long period. I mean, the NHL knows they're getting off. They know who's going to be submitting applications for the most part. I mean, we could fill out ours and they would be surprised, but for the most part, no, they're not gonna. They know who's getting it. So this person felt that this had something to do with Phoenix's issues. That they felt as if the NHL wants to get 2 expansion tickets before having to move Phoenix. And that was a really interesting point, and I hadn't really thought about the connection between all that, because if Phoenix is in trouble and if they can't come to terms with the city, the NHL will move them out of there. And if that's the case, think about if Phoenix moves to Quebec or Phoenix moves to Vegas, they don't get the $500 million for that. So get the big ticket first, and then deal with having to move Phoenix. And a couple people felt like that was there was a connection there. Thoughts on that one, Kevin?
Well, that's always going to be a threat, even if it's not now, 2 years from now. So, in that, I think they all sort of recognize that there's a possibility at some point you might have to move that team. Because they may. Pardon me.
The owners don't get their money if they move Phoenix. If you move Phoenix to Quebec, for example.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, it's not just now. Let's just say that they win their court case, but they tried for 3 years in Arizona and they just can't develop the fan base. They're going to have to move it. So I'm not sure why that changes expansion now. I think it's accepted that they know that a prime expansion place might have to be a landing spot for a team parachuting in. So I've always felt, we've always sort of felt that that's Quebec?
Yeah, it does, and it really has always felt like that. And it always felt like somebody would either move to Quebec or
right. That's somebody moved to Winnipeg.
But you don't want to do that because they got $60 million for a move to Winnipeg. The owners did, and that's not a lot of money. I mean, that's the relocation.
No, but you know what? Those teams, both those cities had. I mean, this is how you rationalize it. Both those cities had NHL teams at one point. They're not a fresh. This just a do-over.
Yeah.
So.
But it's just so much money. I mean,
well, it is, but you can't totally exclude that. You know.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Oh yeah, no, you have to. But I think what I'm thinking about the way the NHL works is it's not Gary Bettman's league. It's an owners league, and Bettman's speaking for them. We know this, right? This is how this works. These owners I can see a scenario like the 2 people I talked to said this. I can see a scenario where the owners freak out about this Phoenix thing and say, well, man, what if they move? We got to get this expansion thing going because we got to get those expansion fees in because they could look at what's going on now in Phoenix and it could be viewed as more serious to the owners.
Well, yeah, but anyway, how does it? Here's my question though: how does that change anything? Suppose they put those 2 in, and then Arizona still has to move. Well, it's going to have to go to Quebec, so you lose that expansion money. I mean,
well, if you make Quebec one of the expansion teams, you don't.
But Arizona has to go somewhere.
Right, they have to go somewhere. The most money is going to be gotten, I think. The feeling is the most money can be gotten out of Quebec and Vegas. So if you move them there, then Seattle.
I got news for everybody. Whatever they charge here, the third team's not getting in for less. You know.
But if they're an expansion team, they have to, because that money goes. But see, the difference is that not an expansion team. If they're a relocation team, they have to, because
No, but I understand that. But what I'm not following is this logic. You know that sooner or later you might have to deal with this. It's not a foregone conclusion. So, and at some point it's going to go to a city that someday could be an expansion team. Like, we're not done after 2 expansion teams.
Right. No, but the feeling is, how many cities are willing to pay $500 million for a team versus getting a team as a relocation team? Like Kansas City can get a relocation team, but probably not pay.
Well, Kansas City could afford to be an expansion team as well, because Lamar Hunt Jr. Apparently made a statement today that he's been looking to get an NHL team in Kansas.
I'm sort of playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, but what I'm trying to do is
let me get this straight.
Go ahead.
So what you're saying is that they're afraid that there are teams out there, there are cities out there that you would put an NHL franchise but couldn't afford to buy one. Is that what you're saying? Couldn't afford to get an expansion team?
Yes. No, not completely. What I'm saying is the most money to be gotten, they want to get for an expansion team before they move Phoenix or Florida.
But my point is, once they establish that 500.
That's a starting point, Bettman said.
Yeah, but it's not going to go down.
No, I'm saying it goes up. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Quebec could be $800 million.
And where is logically it going to go up exponentially? The second team in Toronto. That's your billion-dollar baby.
Yeah, well, that's another one, right?
I think you're overthinking this. They're going to get their money, regardless. Like, they're not going to run out of places to put. Like, there'll be more cities who are willing to take expansion teams than they're going to want to take.
But they have to be safe cities. They have to be cities that they believe, because, like Gary Bettman said, rightfully so, that they split a 30-team pot now. You add another team, now they're splitting 31 ways, and then 32 ways. And that's true. And if those teams are below the average, that's less money for everybody. If they're above the average, that's more money for everybody.
Right. You're making my case for me. So you know what I mean? So they're not going to take 37 or 38 teams. They will find 4 teams. Like if they got it in their head that the most that the league would support is 34 teams, they'll find 4 teams that'll pay $500 million or more, in my thinking, and still have a place to put the Arizona Coyotes.
I don't know. I mean, that's do you really think that there's that much money out there willing to invest in the NHL?
I mean, sooner or later there'll be a new stadium in Seattle. And I've read the same stories that Mike did about Kansas City.
Yeah.
Sooner or later the Toronto thing will come up and it'll be more than 500,000. So I mean I think a better argument would be that the owners just want that money now.
Well, that's partly what I'm saying. I mean I'm trying to argue as the owners who I talk to who are talking to me about this. And they live in a different world than we live in. They really do. And they see this as, oh my gosh, Phoenix, we can't let Phoenix move to Quebec or Arizona move to Quebec, because that's $800 million there in Quebec.
But
we have to get that money.
Somebody's still going to pay that amount of money.
I don't know about that. And they don't know that. And this is a group that's had issues trying to get owners they couldn't get an owner for Phoenix forever. There's not. I mean, it is different. I grant, I'm playing both sides of it, but I'm saying where they're looking at it is they see this as a $1 billion cash cow that's about to hit them, right? And they're not going to willing to give up even a couple $100 million if they have to lose a couple $100 million because Phoenix is falling apart. They want to get this in first.
What the NHL owners might be seeing here, Act, is the fact that they've signed their long-term television deal with Sportsnet in Canada. They've signed their long-term deal with NBC in the U.S. Where's the big cash cow coming in the next 7 or 8 years?
Right.
The only thing is expansion. It benefits the PA because it'll be 25 more pro jobs and 50 pro contracts per franchise, so they won't complain. And the owners get all the revenue because it's not shared hockey really owners' pockets.
It won't help the salary cap at all.
Right. It won't have the salary cap at all. But it's money in their pockets. You're talking, if it's $500 million, it's $2 billion for 4 teams, and it equals the NBC deal right there in one fell swoop. So
yeah.
I don't see it as a big big question of why. It's simply they can make money on it.
$1 billion is what these teams split after the lockout missed season. Remember, I mean this was a $2 billion league at that point. So they were splitting,
I just think that they're not hurrying it along because they're worried about Arizona. They're hurrying it along because they want the $1 billion. I think we're overthinking it. I think there'll be plenty of.
Yeah, that's possible.
They just want the money. I mean, it's a lot of money. And
I think there is some connection to it because, well, I mean,
this was the plan for as long as I can remember. This was the plan for. This Arizona thing came down. So unless they anticipated this problem, we knew, like Bettman's and the owners approved them surveying Las Vegas before this thing came down.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. And that's I completely agree with that. There's no question. I think that what is happening though is the people who I talked to, one who is a current ownership group, another that's in an ownership group that is trying to, and there's a lot of ownership groups out there trying to buy NHL teams, led by pretty prominent players, or ex-players, I mean, and they are sort of laughing at this whole, okay, suddenly there's a month that we've got to get our applications in by, a concept, and
it just has been out there for 6 months.
Oh, I know.
It's going to happen.
I know, but that this particular month would be the month.
No, that wasn't out. I had never heard that until this came down. But I'm just
saying,
everybody knew that this was going to be, there were reports of when the expansion was going to take place and that it was probably going to happen at Vegas and, the owners were going to get together. So I'm not sure that there's been any.
The NHL's definitely doing something. Yeah, you're right. And the NHL's definitely going along what they're doing by saying, when you say we're looking to sell something for $500 million, and you've got to get your application in 30 days from now, and it has to be done by 60 days from now. You're going to the most secure possible people to buy this because no one's going to be able to get a group together in that period of time to get that kind of money. That's if suddenly it's available. I mean, unless a group's been building it already, and there have been those kind of groups, but the NHL has definitely not been in favor of those ex-player run groups because they'd rather have the Pegulas of the world, right?
And they know what they have in Vegas. I mean, Foley has done the legwork. He's going to be the guy. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's another discussion for another. I'm still not a Vegas thing. I still don't like it. I think it's the NHL's ego wanting to be the first pro sports franchise in that city. I think that's what's driving this, not the fact that makes sense to put a team there. But, I think it took a long time for them to get 13,000 tickets sold when other cities that we know of could sell 13,000 tickets in less than 5 minutes, right? So it took them...
No, that's a fair comment. And
quite a few months.
The big problem is where's the second one going? That's the other thing.
Right. No, and I mean, and Quebec's expecting a team. I mean, that's something that there are people up there that I believe were promised a team. So I don't think that... Well,
but they are going to get a team. Like, I just read recently... yesterday wrote this thing about it's up in the air whether Quebec's going to get a team. I'm willing to bet my house Quebec is going to have a team, just like I said that about Winnipeg. It's just they're going to get their team when the league wants it to get it, not when they want it. So,
right.
I mean, it's low hanging fruit as the way NHL officials looking at that. It's going to be successful in Quebec, but it's right now it doesn't really help the league to put Quebec and Vegas as the two teams because they still have an imbalance. So
yeah, I mean I think owners and arenas will overweigh imbalance all the time though. I think that we'll have to see.
They either do one things. They expand by 4, give Quebec 1, and expand 3 teams in the West. That balances out your conferences at 17 and 17, or Quebec is basically the parachute for the Coyotes, but they stay in the West.
They can't keep them in the West. I mean,
no, I don't think so either. So
we got to play them against. We got to go. But that's a great show, guys.
Yeah.
Fun time. Thank you so much. We will be back again tomorrow without the buzz. It is just hockey. Talk to you then.